You know, you've been on this issue probably before almost anyone. Why is the environmental movement, it appears from the outside, pushed you out?
Well, first of all, they bought into only one of two major party candidates can win. You take the least worst. They said they're not supporting an independent. They're not even abstaining. But the point is, where does this ever end? Every 4 years, it simply gets worse. The parties get more and more corporate indentured.
And Obama drills like Sarah Palin. He opened up the Arctic until Shell didn't want it. He's opened up the Florida coastline, the public lands.
And the only reason he didn't support the XL pipeline, this is a good lesson, is because of the demonstrations and the protests and 1,500 people being arrested in one day around the White House. Let me tell you, he would have endorsed it right away. But he saw a peril in the 2012 election.
So let's talk about Bernie Sanders. And I think as a backstory, and my own critique of Sanders, is that he has long been a member of the Democratic establishment. He campaigned for Bill Clinton in 1992, again in 1996, after Clinton passed things like NAFTA, assault on the prison, exploding the prison population, tax on welfare. He campaigned for the Democrats in 2004. Indeed, in 2004, announced that you should not be running for president as a third-party candidate. This was the support of John Kerry, who was out-bushing Bush on Iraq. He wouldn't have withdrawn from Fallujah. Bernie has supported, in his voting record, despite his rhetoric, almost all military appropriations bills, funding for the NSA, funding for the CIA. There is not a pro-Israel resolution coughed up by the Israel lobby and AIPAC he hasn't supported. I don't see how, given the fact that we are being disemboweled by the war industry, Seymour Melman was onto this a long time ago, we can't talk about creating an egalitarian, a socialist society if we don't confront the war machine, and he won't confront it. I would like to know how you view his candidacy and what this will mean, especially given his long complicity with the Democrats, and he's been the main force behind building a third-party candidacy in Vermont. He never has supported, and there's powerful or strong grassroots movements that would like to build a third party in Vermont. What this means for progressive, what this means for us, what it means for those of us who would like to confront corporate power.
Well, Bernie Sanders has been around a long time. He can see beyond the next hill or around the next corner. And I think I know what his game plan is. Basically, he wants to arouse public opinion in a progressive manner domestically. He's got real problems with military and foreign policy positions that he has not taken progressively. But he wants to build progressive public opinion so that it pulls the Democratic Party a little bit. But he doesn't want to do this in any way that can take a vote away from the nominee, if you say Hillary Clinton. So he's lost his bargaining power electorally when he said he'll endorse the Democratic nominee 5 months ago without saying it depends who it is. He would have had some bargaining power. So he's finished in terms of any electoral dynamics when the primary season is over.
Do you have a theory as to why?
Yeah, but his job now, as he sees it, is to mobilize and focus and elevate the enthusiasm of progressive-minded people. But here's where the contradiction is. If you don't go into the electoral arena to win, and you got to go after the leader in the polls, Hillary Clinton, you don't have to do it nastily, but she's very vulnerable. A militarist, a Wall Street, a corporatist, the worst on her record. She said annihilate the Iranian people. The Iranian, if they have a nuclear weapon, I mean, annihilate an entire people, 75 million people. And she said in her last answer to her question on the first debate recently, when they said, what are the enemies you're most proud of? And she put the Iranians.
Right.
Imagine if she had said, the Israelis or... It's just amazing how she can get away with stuff like that. Here's the contradiction, Chris. If he doesn't go electorally in a serious way to win, then he's setting up millions of Americans and young Americans for a huge morale collapse. When in April or May he appears on the stage with Hillary Clinton, if she's the nominee and the winner of the primaries, and he endorses her. and then he is folded into the whole Clinton Wall Street machine.
Right.
He goes back to the Senate as a hero. He has a little more influence in the Senate. Maybe he'll get 2 senators to sign on to his single-payer bill. He couldn't get one other senator to sign on to his single-payer bill.
He voted for Obamacare, though.
Yeah. And he has a huge mailing list, and he continues his merry way. So he's got to be called to account here. Look, Bernie, you've got to go all the way. You've got to take it to November. And he says, no, I'm not going to take it to November. I'm not going to be responsible for the defeat of the Democratic Party.
But he's part of the Democrat. He sits in the caucus.
Yeah.
He has seniority. The Democrats, in a quid pro quo, do not mount serious candidates against him in Vermont. And in return, he doesn't support third-party candidacies, including your own.
And here's the nub. The Democratic establishment and their political operatives are amused by Bernie Sanders day after day. They're not fearful of him. They're amused. Why are they amused? Because he's given up his bargaining power and says he's going to nominate, he's going to support the Democratic nominee. He's not going to go independent. He's not going to support a third party. So they're amused because he's going to get more votes out for Hillary Clinton.
Isn't he just giving Hillary Clinton her talking points week by week? I think you pointed out.
Yes. What Hillary Clinton now is doing is to camouflage her corporatist and military crimes and misdeeds. She basically is learning how to mimic Bernie Sanders with his language. So she is now for a minimum wage increase. Well, we couldn't get her to come out for a minimum wage increase sponsored by the Democrats, $10.10 an hour, until May of last year. And we had to get women's groups and children's protection groups to again and again appeal to her.
Well, she opposes the TPP, sort of.
Yeah.
You know, after largely being one of the engines behind its creation.
Behind NAFTA, behind the World Trade Organization. She supported the deregulation of Wall Street by her husband, Bill Clinton. Never challenged the corruption and the greed that led to the collapse on the economy. No, this is a tragic period in American history.
What is that? So let's say this scenario that you suggest plays out, which I expect it will, and it's one of the reasons why I've been very critical of Bernie Sanders. So it does play out. What does that mean for us? If he, you know, this kind of moral and physical collapse with Bernie selling out to the Clintons and the Democratic establishment, what's that? What are the consequences of that?
The consequences are he doesn't mean what he says, therefore he'll come across as a betrayer of millions of people who went to his rallies and are telling pollsters he's our choice because he has entered the two-party prison and basically says, I'll drop all my principles because I think the Republicans are worse than the Democrats.
I think he's already shown that he is in that prison.
Oh, yeah, he is in the prison. But
he's completely consistent.
Yes, but he still has an opportunity to get out of it. The interesting thing is, if you're going to be in the prison, for heaven's sake, attack the Electoral College, where you can come in second and become president, which in effect accentuates the red state, blue state polarization. You know, the Democrats never campaign in Texas or Alaska or Alabama. The Republicans never campaign in Massachusetts, New York, or California. All this is the Electoral College and gerrymandering as well. But he's not doing that either.
But he's giving credibility to the Democratic establishment and to Hillary Clinton.
Oh, here's the easiest bar, which he's not willing to set. Let's say he's lost the primaries, but they still want his endorsement because he has a following. He could say to Hillary Clinton and the corporatist cohorts around her, I'm not endorsing you unless you agree to the following agenda, including a tax on Wall Street speculation. He won't even do that.
Well, because, Ralph, he knows, I mean, you know, he knows they'd destroy him.
They couldn't destroy him.
Well, they could destroy him in Vermont.
He's senator for life from Vermont. He gets 20% of the Republican vote. He gets elected with ever-growing numbers. He has a terrific mailing list. He knows how to talk Vermontese. But if he doesn't do that, if he doesn't say, I'm not endorsing you unless you share a press conference with me and seriously support this agenda that I have put before millions of heartened and enlivened American voters, especially the young generation. If he doesn't do that, he's going to go down as a total wimp, a totally complicit person with the subsequent crimes of the Hillary Clinton administration. Wars overseas, destroying the public budgets for the military expenses, compromising and restricting our civil liberties, continuing the bailout economy of the rich and powerful.
All right. Thank you, Ralph Nader. And thank you for watching Days of Revolt.
Had to eat out the watermelon patch. And you know they put me on a shot.